Things are starting to go back together here finally. Got some more of the bar chips coming from New England. That's all good. This gives you an idea of what the All Grip 2000 looks like after a lot of work. Not sure I'd recommend people doing this, painting the alumina. It's been a massive amount of work. Certainly looks good, but man, that's taken a lot of effort. The mast is sitting outside waiting for me to rub out my spraying flaws, and so that's happening. Now we're sanding out what essentially is the guide coat on the All Grip 545 epoxy primer. This has been sitting here for a while waiting for me to get back to it. So what we're doing is using a 220 grit to perfect that surface so that there is virtually no orange peel or any other surface issue going on, and then that surface would be ready for either an additional coat of 545, which I may do because I've sanded through in one spot, and that is important. So I'll either have to just touch that one spot up or spray the whole thing again. And right now I'm not liking the idea of spraying the whole thing, so probably a touch up. So again, sanding with 220 prior to touch up on this side, and then we've got the whole deck surfaces to spray, because we found several places where the old imprint of the deck surface was still showing through. So more work, more spraying, and so that'll get a second coat for sure, maybe even a third, so that we make sure that there's no deck grid still showing through the surface. Just finished fairing out the other hull on the areas where I did some reinforcing and patching, not patching, but reinforcement. There's double layers now of 6-ounce glass on the outside and an additional single layer, well actually take it back, that's a double layer on the inside of those surfaces as well. It's when I looked inside after my work, it's certainly not pretty, but it will serve, because the double layer of glass will stop the flexing of the sides against that crotch of that beam in there. So that should help long term. Got the other deck hatch cut out, and it's ready. You can actually make a case that the other place that would be important to have a inspection ability would be right behind the dagger boards, but that would be right where you want to sit, and I'm not sure I want to sit on that. I think someday if I ever had a trunk repair, then you might have to make a new inspection hatch there, so you could get to the back side where you'd really want to be able to have access. But until that happens, I'm going to leave it alone. So the sanding continues and continues, and then we'll be spraying some 545 hopefully later today on the other hull, and getting it ready. One little issue I have to sort out is in sanding over the numbers, the hull number on the starboard hull. I did, let's see if I can zoom in here a bit. I did manage to sand through enough that it, even though those numbers were really light, and I'm missing a couple digits, so I'm going to take my Dremel tool and put the numbers back in there so they show through long term. And what else? We have multiple pieces now that are finished. Got the, I don't know what you call these guys, the hold the tramp, those are all finished. The dolphin striker is done. Again, this is, I'm not sure this is coming through very well. So it's done. Lots of small pieces are finished, so things will start to be going back together. I also get to do some finish work on the beams. While they look pretty good, they are not perfect. So the nice thing about this All Grip 2000, if it's, you call it nice, is that it's hard enough that you can sand out imperfections and then start, you know, you go from 320 to 400 to 400 wet and dry up to 600, 1500. Then you can start using the polisher to perfect the surface so it looks good. But right now we have some slight orange peel and, you know, issues. Not sure if it's my spray equipment or me, the mix or whatever, but it's not perfect. But the finish is incredibly hard. That part I'm liking, but still lots of work to do there. I doubt seriously if this camera can pick up the imperfections, because it, maybe there. You can see some orange peel there. So more work to do. I'm going to make some wooden end caps. My boat's never had end caps, and I think I'll finally add them. But I don't know if they're all that important, but they look nice, and it'd be cool to have some cool teak ones or something. I also do something. The repairs on the rudders. Let's see if you can. This is the one that had the crack, and it's been sanded out. I've added 2 layers of cloth on the this outside edge to reinforce it and draw it and maintain that the split that was going along the seam doesn't come apart again. Did the same fix on the other rudder, even though it wasn't cracked. It decided it needed some reinforcing, so hopefully we don't get to revisit that someday. So at this point, I'll put just a coating of epoxy resin over this again, and then that really helps smooth out the surface, and then I can sand that, and then I'll get back to priming them and having some fun with that. I don't know what that's showing on the rudder. See, something stuck to it. It's not a defect. These bits look really good. Looking forward to reinstalling them. Got new clam cleats. One thing that I came across that I'll show in the image library is the issue of the nose sizes of the small riveter versus this big guy. And that has become an issue, trying to get this big nose into small spaces like the front of the clam cleat. You end up having to try to do it at an angle, and that's an issue. I'm not sure if the pneumatic tools have a smaller nose or what, but this big nose is an issue. It's a little better on the hand tool, and if you're pulling an aluminum rivet, that's fine. It really isn't a big deal. But found that out quickly as I was riveting things back together. The other thing I'm doing with all my rivets is coating the surfaces with this Duralac, and it's just a matter of dipping the rivet into the bottle and giving it a coating, and then also coating any of the stainless surfaces so that there's no chance of the stainless in contact, or little chance of the stainless being in contact with aluminum. So we'll do that anywhere that we're putting things back together. And since I've got that, I haven't been using some of the other techniques I thought about earlier. So boom, looks good. And if you use the the 5 feet or whatever the distance you want, it looks really good at a distance. If you look really close, you can see that I could have rubbed it out even more, but I'm getting kind of tired of doing that crap. So another day. So things are starting to go back together, and we're starting to advance a little faster at this point in time. I need to track down a couple of missing fasteners. So that's a trip into Portland to do that. One thing that I didn't note earlier, and I did take a good look at, was I was all concerned about cracking in the beams, or under the beams. The other place I took a good hard look at inside was on these back plates of the hulls, and no cracking or signs of it there on either hull. Did coat both of them with epoxy and made sure that the pitting that was there has been cleaned up. So that's all good. I don't know. Shop floor is taking on a nice coat of all grip gray, or jet gray, from all the spraying of the boom and beams and these little parts, which were a pain in the arse, as it were. And again, I'm not sure I'd recommend anyone do this themselves. Really have to, if you're looking to improve the looks of your aluminum, you really might want to consider buying the paint and taking it to a body shop or something, because they probably have better skills, and certainly the issues with the fumes with this paint are substantial. I end up going to a full face respirator because literally my eyes were burning after the first day of spraying this stuff. Fumes were a little nasty. And I have used up about 1.5 quarts of the All Grip 2000 because of my ineptitude with spraying the stuff. So I've sprayed and sanded off more than I care to think about. But that's part of the learning process. Shop actually looks like a shop finally. I literally spent 2 days trying to sort things out again. That's some of my fairing that's I just dabbed on there and decided it was going to run out afterwards. I made a thin mix that I could brush with a brush, and it decided to vacate the premises. I should have commented about why use the All Grip 545 epoxy, and there's certainly other primer options out there. And certainly an epoxy primer is, in my opinion, the best way to go. It provides a seal to the polyester resins, which is important. But the other thing is that this type of primer essentially is what I think the body coat guys, or body rebuilders, the auto body guys, would call a guide coat. So once you've sprayed it on, it has enough material and thickness to it, and it sands well enough that you basically perfect that surface by sanding. It's not the sprayed surface. Certainly it's nice if you get a perfectly sprayed surface, but that just reduces sanding. But it's the sanding that actually perfects the surface prior to putting your finish coats on, which in my case will be the perfection surface. But this surface, after it's been sanded with that 220, is completely free of any kind of orange peel or any other surface defect that would come through on that high gloss surface. So if you're thinking about doing something like this, make sure to use a primer that doesn't just hold the paint but allows you to perfect that surface so that you get a good undercoat to overlay your final surface on, because as everyone says, it's all about the preparation. So that's what you're trying to do here, and so that's why we're sanding off some very expensive, very nice all grip 545 epoxy primer. Okay, so we have one coat of 545 epoxy primer on almost everything except for the underside of the port hull. So we'll get that tomorrow, and then we'll start sanding out the what has been sprayed now with 220, and then have some fun. Once everything's primed, there's just no reason to not start fooling around with the perfection paint. So I guess that's coming soon. Can hardly wait.